confess your crime to the Jedi Council, or receive the forgiveness you seek.
Forgive me. We thought we were doing the right thing.
I won't let you leave. It's not up to you. You can't stop me. Yes, I can. How? I'll kill you.
After running through that forest for an extremely long time, I realized something. I don't need to do this anymore. My loyalty is to Osha. What I'm going to do is surrender myself to Kelnaka, and then turn myself into the Jedi.
There's nothing I dislike more in television than narrative whiplash, where the momentum is building in one direction only to be flipped on its head with characters doing uncharacteristic things that fundamentally change their objectives on a whim. This is followed closely by my grievances and frustrations with the bridge episode in serialized shows. These are not the well-crafted episodes that carefully set the chess pieces for the season's climax while enriching our understanding of the characters and advancing the plot. Those, while perhaps not memorable, are necessary gears in the storytelling machine. No, my issue is with the ones like episode 4 of The Acolyte, which seems to exist solely to funnel us into the season's climax without offering any substantial content. It felt like 25 minutes of narrative wheel spinning, merely moving characters to a new location, the setup for unveiling a major antagonist. It's as though the showrunners decided that a cliffhanger, such as the revelation of the Master's identity, would compensate for an entire episode of non-events, without actually revealing who the Master is. It's a bit like putting a single sprinkle on an otherwise bland ice cream scoop and calling it a sundae. As Dr. Phil would say,
"You can put a lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig."
Moreover, aside from May and Osha, whose backstories and current motivations were at least barely sketched out before this episode, characters like Sol remain enigmas wrapped in riddles. Is Sol a master of deceit or just remarkably uninformed? Either scenario is concerning. Meanwhile, other characters like Checky and Yord remain underdeveloped, mere outlines of characters at a point in the series when we should be well acquainted with their complexities. Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. And today, we're breaking down the next 3 episodes of The Acolyte.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Episode 4 of The Acolyte, titled Day, is very short, clocking in at just under 27 minutes, excluding credits and a recap, making it briefer than any installment from Andor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, or the Book of Boba Fett. The brevity feels particularly harsh here, as the episode, which can only be described as a nothing burger walking simulation, only gets interesting in the final minute. The episode struggles with its pacing and narrative depth before its climactic moments. Even with its lightsaber-laden end, this episode offers more of a cliffhanger than a resolution, a continuing trait from previous episodes. Directed by Alex Garcia Lopez and penned by Claire Keischel and Cora Dana, this episode reconvenes its characters on Kofa, in Kelnaka's Sylvan hideaway. Opting for a life reminiscent of Henry Thoreau's Walden, Kelnaka is withdrawn into solitude, haunted by his past. His dwelling, an ancient stone ruin, is festooned with symbols of the Witches' Coven from the previous episode, underscoring his preoccupation with unresolved events from Brendok, a pain only death seems capable of easing, or so the writers of this show would have you think. May heads towards Kofar with lethal intent, targeting the recluse Jedi. Accompanied by Kamir, who conveniently knows Kelnaka's whereabouts, May's mission seems suspiciously straightforward. Having Kamir around is turning out to be extremely useful when you're in the business of Jedi assassination.
Jedi business, go back to your drinks.
Meanwhile, the Jedi are also en route to Kofar with Osha, but with a more pacifist objective, to warn Kelnaka of the impending threat and to attempt a peaceful capture of Osha's estranged sister. The stage is thus set for a potentially explosive confrontation, hinting that Kofar might soon be less about scenic forest retreats and more about showdown throwdowns. Intrigue deepens back at the Jedi Temple, where the Council, including a younger version of Ki-Adi-Mundi from the prequel films, deliberates over the situation, despite canonically not being born for another 30 to 40 years. Amidst discussions is the analysis of May's combat prowess, having everybody pondering if she belongs to a splinter order or something even more malevolent.
We must alert the High Council.
The High Council would be obliged to inform the Senate.
Chiari Mundi suggests involving the current council, but Master Venestra quickly vetoes, fearing the political fallout and public panic that could ensue. Her insistence on handling matters discreetly foreshadows the political entanglements and denial that would later haunt the Jedi, paving the way for the cunning machinations of Palpatine. Venestra's approach reflects preference for secrecy and image management over transparency, a strategy that might work in a corporate boardroom but spells disaster for the Jedi Order. It's almost as if they're trying to keep up appearances for the galactic Instagram, rather than address the real and growing threats, certainly a tactic that would make even the most convoluted political drama blush. As Venestra dismisses the broader implications of May's actions, she admits a troubling suspicion. May's violent quest might just be a precursor to a more significant upheaval, a slight scale tipper, if one were to understate the rise of the Sith and the fall of the Jedi in terms typically reserved for describing minor disturbances in a tea shop. With the pieces moving into place, the Jedi's chessboard seems increasingly precarious, teetering on the brink of a game-changing checkmate.
Kanaka is in there.
The small group of Jedi find themselves traversing the verdant wilderness of Kofar, reminiscent of Luke Skywalker's first foray into Dagobah in The Empire Strikes Back. However, unlike his reverent exploration of the planet, the Jedi's journey through Kofar is marked by a notable lack of care for the local flora and fauna. As they make their way through the forest, they inadvertently provoke an Umbramoth, leading to its unfortunate demise on Sol Saber, a moment more akin to a bug zapping than a noble encounter. While Jeki muses philosophically about witnessing transformations into the Force, the Umbram of Sand hardly seems honorable, sparking a glimmer of remorse in Osha. The writers really seem to want us to feel as though the Jedi are the bad guys here. This episode, much like a Star Wars version of a nature faux pas, echoes several motifs from The Empire Strikes Back. There's the strained interaction between Basil, a Tinin from the vintage novel Han Solo's Revenge, and Pip, paralleling the friction between Yoda and R2-D2. The forest encounters also mirror those on Dagobah, with Osha's run-in with the Umbramoth echoing Luke's encounter with the Dragon Snake. Further, the secluded dwellings of Kalnaku and Yoda serve as backdrops for personal revelations and fireside contemplations, despite the varying quality in how these things are handled. May's frustration with the perceived impossible tasks reflect Luke's own trials under Yoda's tutelage.
It's not a test. It's impossible.
You want the impossible.
Even the trapping mechanism seems to have a nod to the Star Wars universe's broader ecosystem, with a hint of the forest moon of Endor's net traps in the mix. Amidst these callbacks and cinematic parallels, Kimir emerges as a not-so-mysterious figure. His motivations remain as veiled as the Sith attire he might be concealing beneath his inappropriate clothing for the climate. A case of dress to oppress if I ever saw it. His interactions with May are laden with hints that he could be more than just a guide. His absence during key events more than spoon-feed our understanding that he is indeed the Master. On the production front, the Acolyte offers a momentary visual feast with its on-location shots. However, the series stumbles with its less convincing on-set scenes, where the lush and foreboding sets feel as staged as a high school play's backdrop. It's the lack of consistency that's irritating. The frequent use of Star Wars transitions, while nostalgic, borders on excessive, giving the episode a PowerPoint-like feel, a move that feels more dizzying than dazzling. It's like the show is begging you to accept that it's Star Wars by using cheap parlor tricks and member berries, while fundamentally misunderstanding the essence of the storytelling genius that made the original films great. The pervasive impassiveness that has come to define contemporary Star Wars is ever present, with characters frequently vocalizing the subtext as if fearing the audience might miss the deeper meanings.
Well, I could never accept death as a true Jedi should.
A true Jedi.
I couldn't accept what I'd lost, how unfair it felt, the resentment that I felt for my sister, even though I missed her at the same time.
Will you stop trying to put it in terms you think they'll understand? It's condescending.
I'm not doing that. I'm just explaining.
This is exemplified in a scene where Yord's dialogue to Osha feels more like a verbal walkthrough of her emotional journey rather than subtle storytelling. He suggests,
Maybe Sol brought you here to face her, but maybe he brought you here to face yourself.
Echoed by Sol's own,
You're not going to face her. You're going to face your past.
The audience, already privy to Osha's trauma via the episode-long flashback, might find themselves thinking, yes, we already know this. Lee Jung-jae's portrayal adds the needed warmth and depth to the ensemble. However, the script's scant attempts at humor often miss the mark, leaving us wishing for a bit more levity and purpose to break up the monotony. The episode also grapples with abrupt character developments that may leave you feeling disoriented. For instance, the relationship between Osha and Jackie progresses with such speed that it seems disconnected from the storyline, lacking a narrative foundation that might have given depth to their sudden camaraderie. Similarly, Osha's newfound courage to confront May is presented as a swift resolution to an internal struggle we haven't witnessed, reducing what could be a compelling character arc into a mere plot convenience. But the most jarring narrative twist involves May's sudden moral reversal. After a lengthy walk through the forest, she experiences an epiphany that abruptly shifts her allegiances from her darker pursuits to a newfound loyalty to Osha.
Osha being alive changes everything. My loyalty is to Osha.
What the hell's going on? What the hell is going on?
This change, akin to a high-speed U-turn in narrative direction, lacks the gradual build-up one might expect from such a pivotal transformation. It's an absurdly quick change of heart, much like if Han Solo had instantly gone from a selfish smuggler to a selfless hero, deciding to join the rebellion fully without his journey of conflict and eventual camaraderie and friendship with Luke and Leia. Such a rapid shift not only strains believability, but also robs the storyline of a rich exploration of redemption. This just had me yearning for a more fleshed out interaction and a slower, more immersive exploration of character evolution, ensuring that pivotal changes resonate with emotional authenticity rather than coming across as narrative expedients. The intricacies of May's final challenge from her master weave a web of ethical quandaries and Jedi philosophy. As she explains to Kamir, her task is to kill a Jedi without a weapon, a directive that seems to twist a Jedi's own principles against them, anticipating that a Jedi wouldn't strike an unarmed opponent. But as I said in the last video, links in the description, striking down an unarmed enemy in hatred, that is the path to the dark side, but killing a combatant who is actively trying to harm you and others, that's fair game. You can't say the Jedi are so virtuous that they would rather let themselves be killed than defend themselves, while at the same time make the crux of the series revolve around them being fallible, and not the paragons of morality that we originally thought. There's major cognitive dissonance going on here that the writers can't see. May's recount of her master's words and her subsequent interpretations also blur the lines between literal and metaphorical unarmed combat, raising the question, is a challenge to forego physical weapons, or to subvert her moral stance against attacking an unarmed person? Her attempt to manipulate this directive by stealing weapons and subverting what he's saying suggests that she's less like a Sith apprentice and more like a law student looking for loopholes in their exam questions. One of the most disappointing aspects of this episode is that it marked a somber milestone with the introduction and rather unceremonious exit of the franchise's first live-action Wookiee Jedi, Kelnaka. After turning away from Kamir and disavowing her master, May decides to turn herself in to Kelnaka, saying that Osha being alive changes her objective, despite the previous episode showing that she was willing to burn her sister to death. Running into his stone home, she finds that he had died off screen. His death, which had the potential to be impactful, fizzles due to the audience's lack of emotional connection with him, and the fact that we didn't see him die. We then have the entrance of Darth Smile, with a helmet that looks like Kylo Ren's took a nightmarish trip through a dental horror story. Appearing behind Osha, he flicks adversaries aside with the nonchalance of someone changing TV channels rather than engaging in deadly combat. As for Ki-Adi-Mundi, his skepticism about the Sith's existence draws a line of continuity, or more likely, discontinuity, back to his infamous remark in The Phantom Menace.
Impossible. The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
Liar!
This begs the question of how the Jedi could be so historically amnesic about a threat they faced merely a century ago. The narrative hints at twin fates intertwined, as May's unexpected shift towards the light suggests her twin, Osha, might similarly pivot, but towards the dark. The seeds of this twist are sown as May abandons her vendetta too readily, while Osha's darker impulses simmer out of nowhere. The juxtaposition of May stepping into the light while Osha is enveloped in ominous red shadows suggests the reversal of roles may be forthcoming. Soul's cryptic assurance to Osha,
"I'd explain everything,"
does a little to alleviate the suspense, especially given the slow drip of revelations that challenge the audience's patience. As we reach the mid-season mark, The Acolyte teeters on the edge of needing to deliver substantial answers and action to maintain viewer engagement, if most people haven't already left. One of the few noteworthy aspects of this episode was Master Venestra's directive to keep the Jedi Council in the dark about May, suggesting a move to isolate the Order from broader consequences while playing a dangerous game of galactic politics. This secrecy within the Jedi ranks foreshadows the organizational decay that leads to their downfall. It's like watching someone wallpaper over cracks in the foundation and hoping for the best. But in sum, the episode served as little more than a disappointing prelude. It's slow, meandering, filled with unjustified changes in character motivations and objectives, and is a classic case of all filler, no thriller. In the first quartet of episodes, everything from the dialogue, world building, depiction of the Jedi, pacing, set design, and character development or lack thereof needed a complete overhaul. And with the previous episode taking a page out of Death Stranding as a Kojima-inspired walking simulator, it was beginning to feel as though Star Wars was truly dead. Episode 5 is like a defibrillator aimed at restoring a heartbeat, but one placed on the biceps rather than the heart. The twist that Camille, May's nonchalant companion, was actually her master was predictable. The true revelation was how the Acolyte burst into the second half of its season, with arguably the best episode in the series to date. But that doesn't undo the mess that came before it, nor is the episode not without its faults. In the wake of the forceful end to episode 4, Osha regains consciousness only to encounter a grim scene, a fallen Jedi, and the Master dispatching several others in quick succession. The fact that many of them were unnamed and didn't have any lines should have been a clue that their demise was imminent. Within the first moments, the story decisively narrows its focus to the central characters by reducing the Jedi ranks, setting the stage for the duels that dominate the episode. The structure interweaves three key conflicts: Sol versus Camille, Jecki against May, and Osha grappling with Yord's stringent adherence to rules. As it progresses, the paths of these combatants converge, leading to critical and deadly encounters. Unlike Episode 4, where Kofar's forest felt more like a stage than a setting, Episode 5's environment is markedly improved, murkier and more atmospheric, enhanced by strategic lighting that makes every lightsaber clash visually striking. The highlight was undoubtedly the choreography, which included a tactical twist with Camille's Cortosis armor. This material, a nod to the 1990s Star Wars legends, not only blocks lightsaber strikes like Beskar, but also has the added effect of shorting them out. Camille proves himself a master of both combat and dramatic entrances and exits, keeping May on a constant edge as she attempts to evade the menacing figure who is pulling the strings. While the Jedi Masters and Knights all fell within moments, Jecki, a Padawan, somehow manages to unmask Camille by smashing his helmet, despite us watching her training with a stick in the previous episode.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Pipe down, bitch. Pipe down. Do you want to fight? Do you want to fight?
Jecki is then caught off guard by a hidden saber in his hilt, leading to a swift and brutal defeat. Thus, Sol loses another Padawan, further tarnishing his already questionable mentorship record. Yord's adherence to the traditional Jedi combat technique proves to be his undoing, his confusion over Camille's unpredictable fighting style.
He doesn't follow the rules of combat, and there's no method to his movements. It doesn't make sense.
Culminates in his demise, moments after Camille chillingly dismisses the concept of the rules of engagement.
If you never follow them, you never have to break them.
Knight delivered some exciting moments, but a few things held it back. The first issue is our superficial familiarity with the characters, which lessened the effect of their deaths. The most significant duels, such as Obi-Wan versus Anakin, resonate deeply, not just because of the choreography, but due to the profound emotional stakes involved, which are cultivated over time through developed relationships. But with characters like Yord and Jecki, we barely scratched the surface of who they were before they met their untimely ends. Their deaths, while shocking, don't stir a deep sense of loss. In contrast, the loss of Pip pained me more as it had more personality than both of them combined. Another shortfall was the episode's score, which, despite being labelled as thrilling in the captions, felt like a diluted version of John Williams' iconic compositions. As for Khmer, he openly rejects the label of Sith, despite embodying many of their characteristics.
I have no name, but a Jedi like you might call me Sith.
His ability to penetrate minds and linger there, as noted by Yord and Osha, adds a psychological aspect to his menace.
He gets into your head and he stays there.
One particularly intense scene shifted from a precise saber duel to a raw physical brawl between Sol and Khmer, complete with uncharacteristic growls from Sol as he launched himself at his foe and defeated him. The episode then dips into almost comical territory, when Osha stops Sol from dispatching Khmer because
the Jedi do not attack the unarmed.
Despite Khmer having just demonstrated that his bare hands are quite lethal weapons themselves, he's still very much a threat, given he was able to knock multiple Jedi over using the Force in the previous episode. Her remedy, strapping her beloved Pip to his back, attracting Umbramoths to take him away like he's some kind of Disney princess. This comical sequence just undoes all the goodwill we were giving the episode in one move. On one hand, the episode delivered taut and intense action sequences, yet it simultaneously weaves in a tapestry of confusion, especially regarding May's motivations. Her declaration,
"They've turned you against me,"
copies Anakin's dramatic accusation in Episode 3, word for word. However, May's elusive desires and allegiances keep us guessing, much like a magician who pulls out everything from his hat except the rabbit we were told to expect. All these elements underscore the problem that the Acolyte has in balancing spectacle with substance. Episode 5 could have been lifted straight from a Star Wars edition of The Parent Trap, with Osha and May inadvertently trading places and possibly allegiances, after May incapacitates her sister and gives herself a haircut with a lightsaber, in one of the most bizarre sequences. The series then begins to play with a classic trope of mistaken twin identity, requiring viewers to stretch their suspension of disbelief to galactic proportions. You'd think Sol might recognize the distinct Force signatures of his former apprentice versus May, since, as Yoda would say,
luminous beings so we.
Not just flesh and blood lookalikes, but he doesn't. The episode also teases a deeper dive into the mysteries of Brendok, potentially setting the stage for Osha to turn against Sol, fulfilling May's initial mission to hunt Jedi, if May doesn't exploit Sol's trust to eliminate him first in an ironic twist. Khmer's actions of rescuing Osha indicate that he sees her as a more suitable acolyte. The episode wraps up with Khmer delivering a monologue that's as cryptic as a riddle wrapped in an enigma. His words,
What extraordinary beings we are. Even in the revelation of our triumph, you see the depth of our despair.
Might have sounded profound to some, but instead had me scratching my head, trying to decipher what the hell the writers are trying to get across.
Just want you to stop saying odd shit.
The dialogue is just awful in this show. It clunks like a malfunctioning droid.
What do you want?
The freedom to wield my power the way I like.
For instance, when Osha bluntly states,
"You're a criminal, May. You must pay for your crimes."
It feels less like natural dialogue and more like reading off a galactic Miranda right.
Do we all have our copy of Threat Level Midnight by Michael Scott?
Yeah.
All right, let's get this started.
Don't do this.
You did this to yourself. You followed a false master.
So did you.
You guys suck! You can never pull together as one and revenge us. That is why you suck.
Similarly, the frustrating vagueness with which characters allude to Sol's sins without outright stating them is just a contrived way to add mystery to something that could easily be resolved with a few words. In the end, the episode, while occasionally thrilling, dances around too many pivotal reveals in an effort to stretch out the runtime.
Once we get May safely to the ship, I'll explain everything.
Why did he say I shouldn't trust you? What did you do?
Please, Osha, I'll explain.
Michael, get to the good part.
Okay, so.
He finally has a story we really want to hear. He knows it.
You told me everything that happened on Brendok.
You are very young.
But I'm not now. You can tell me.
It's time to make things right. It's time for me to face the High Council, to tell them everything.
Hester, get off the pot!
I find myself increasingly baffled by the narrative choices Leslie Headland and her team are making as the series progresses. The supposed shock reveal of Khmer as the Master was underwhelming, as the clues were laid out rather conspicuously in the previous episodes.
Why risk discovery?
Well, I did wear a mask.
Right, gang. Now let's see who this really is.
Old Man Red Rock?
Oh, fucking what a shocker.
Moreover, the plot seems to be stubbornly clinging to the anticipated revelation that it wasn't the fire set by May that killed her and Osha's family, but rather a Jedi-orchestrated act, likely under Master Indara's command, which would undermine what the Jedi represent. Most viewers have likely pieced this together already, making the delay in confirming it feel unnecessarily drawn out. They're effectively destroying who the Jedi are, but taking their sweet time, and it's beginning to feel torturous.
You really didn't know it was me? Not even deep down?
You know, your sister being alive doesn't change anything. You need to kill the Wookiee. You made a deal.
Oh, thanks, Freddy. Foreshadowing.
The stories missed a prime opportunity for depth by not allowing May to disclose what she knows about Saul's dark actions before the switch. Such a revelation could have forced Osha into a dramatic dilemma, confront Saul, who played a part in her family's demise, or abandon the Jedi entirely. This would have offered Osha a profound moment to grapple with her loyalties and beliefs organically. Instead, the current trajectory suggests Osha may end up being swayed to the dark side by Camille, who's responsible for the deaths of many she cared about via thirst trapping. If Camille ends up being the one to unveil the truth to her, it might only serve to validate the Jedi's fears about Osha's unreadiness to join their ranks, rather than providing her with a meaningful test of character.
He stole you from us. He saved my life. And what kind of life is that, huh? A life without purpose? Without family?
The frustration with the Acolyte stems from its unfulfilled potential. There's a compelling narrative at its heart somewhere, hidden beneath all the contrivances, plot holes, and underwhelming character work, touching on the flaws and hubris within the Jedi Order that signal its eventual downfall. However, the series stumbles in laying the necessary groundwork to fully realize this story.
Forgive me, Master. I was weak.
You've always been weak.
The characters of Osha and May needed deeper exploration, understanding their origins, their significance to the Coven, and why they attracted the Jedi's attention would have provided a solid foundation for the story. Instead, these crucial details are just glossed over. Similarly, the relationships among the Jedi, particularly between Osha and other key characters like Yord and Jeki, were underdeveloped. Their brief interactions failed to establish the complexity of these relationships, making it really hard to care about their outcomes. Moreover, the portrayal of May and the Master was frustratingly superficial. We needed more scenes illustrating the depth and complexity of May's loyalty to make sense of her quick decision to expose and abandon him. If she was scared of him, joined him because he saved her, or anything that showed she was indebted to him, we'd be able to see her inner conflict driving her, and at least would be able to understand her motivation to follow him and her eventual decision to leave. But as of now, she was always just a selfish character that just thought about herself. She was willing to harm her sister after not getting her way, and even kill Jedi that meant her no harm. So it's hard to sympathize or understand why she suddenly wants to be good.
Did you kill Indara? Yes. I will kill them all.
My loyalty is to Osha, not your master.
What are you doing?
Instead of building these connections, the series hastened to dispatch its supporting cast, reducing the ensemble to just the twins, Saul, and the Master. This not only narrows the scope of the story, but also diminishes the impact of future revelations about the Jedi's past misdeeds. Leslie Headland once described the show as a mix between Frozen and Kill Bill. An odd pitch indeed, but one where you'd expect intense personal drama and thrilling action. However, unlike Kill Bill, where the audience fully understands the backstory and motivations of each character, The Acolyte seems to keep viewers at arm's length, never fully engaging them with the reasons behind the characters' actions. This lack of clarity and connection prevents the series from being the gripping exploration of Jedi failings it could be. The characters act, but without sufficient backstory or motivation presented to the audience, these actions feel hollow. This disconnect is what transforms what could be an interesting tale of the Jedi's arrogance into a disappointing, muddled mess. The fifth episode delivered the kind of action that should ideally conclude a season. Yet with 3 episodes still to go, it didn't bring the narrative to a full stop, leaving the series feeling like it hit pause rather than a proper intermission. This resulted in episode 6 serving as an elongated teaser, hinting at Saul's dark secrets, Osha's looming choices, and Venestra's political maneuverings, without delivering anything of substance. The episode might be divided into thirds, with the segment involving Camille's Sith revelations as the backbone of an otherwise disjointed narrative. The other subplots involving bureaucratic entanglements and hesitant revelations often felt more like narrative stalling than storytelling, making parts of the episode feel like the TV equivalent of a waiting room. Teach Corrupt resumes with Osha regaining consciousness, a direct echo from the previous episode's opening, but diverging quickly into less action-packed and more convoluted territory. Here, we pick up post-Jedi slaughter on Kofar, with Sol attempting to relay the grim news back to Coruscant, while Osha is drawn into the dark allure of Kamir's island lair. It follows a dual storyline, where May and Osha get a crash course in Sith and Jedi philosophies from their respective mentors, Kamir and the beleaguered Sol, whose team recently met a grim fate at the hands of the former.
That man, he corrupted your sister. He pushed me to a place I'm sorry.
On one side, Osha finds herself awakening on an enigmatic island. However, her interactions with Kamir quickly devolve into a monotonous dialogue that does little to elevate the characters or progress the story. Manny Jacinto now dons the mantle of a textbook villain, shedding the layers that made his character somewhat intriguing and turning him into an internet thirst trap. The writers bizarrely try to inject a romantic angle and sexual tension into Osha and Kamir's interactions, complete with a skinny-dipping invitation and an uncomfortable focus on his physique, with chemistry that's notably absent.
If you're not gonna join me, I'd like to put my clothes back on.
I wonder what the reception would have been if the objectification was the other way round. Kamir's philosophies are delivered with such a wooden tone that it strips any potential seductiveness from his dark side lure, and seem almost tailored to Osha's experiences and disillusionments with the Jedi.
What you're feeling right now, this is who you are. The Jedi saw it, and that's why they threw you away.
Weird editing choices cut the moments just as they begin to gain momentum, and the dialogue is often awkward and feels particularly stilted.
And his strength in the Force is very powerful,
States Osha, in a tone that would make Yoda groan.
Where'd you get that scar?
How do you think I got it?
Looks like someone stabbed you in the back.
Someone who threw me away.
The romantic undertones come off as forced, making us question whether the Sith is genuinely seeking an acolyte or just a booty call.
You look exactly like her.
On the other side of the storyline, May, disguised as Osha aboard Sol's ship, struggles to add an ounce of suspense despite the contrived approach. Li Jung-jae, portraying Sol, shines in a silent moment as he grapples with the gravity of his comrades' deaths under his command, and his performance briefly elevates the story with some poignantly scripted lines towards the episode's end.
I noticed the way you take care of him, love him, even though he's just a machine.
However, the journey there is marred by inexplicable slapstick involving May, Basil, and Pip.
Relax, okay?
It's baffling to see May, initially introduced as a formidable force, reduced to comic relief, wrestling with plumbing and tech. It's like watching a Jedi lose a duel to a Roomba. Basil revives Pip, only for May to hit the factory reset, turning the droid's eyes a sinister red, reminiscent of C-3PO's brief turn to the dark side in Episode 9. She doesn't just reset Pip, but does it while saying one of the most unimaginative lines ever conceived.
What if I reset you to factory settings?
What is this, Star Wars or a line read by an Indian call center worker?
Hello, IT? Have you tried turning it off and on again?
The episode flirts with deeper revelations and character developments, but stops short, constrained by a broadcast schedule that demands withholding key information.
My whole team is dead.
If May was responsible for the ship breaking down, it would make sense, but the ship just randomly stopped working because the writers needed it to. The episode epitomizes the frustrating art of stretching out a story in favor of cliffhangers, leading to a host of contrived obstacles that feel more like a commentary on TV tropes than genuine storytelling. The crux of the frustration lies in the glaring plot conveniences. Sol and Kamir refrain from revealing crucial secrets to May and Osha respectively, even though nothing substantial prevents them from doing so. It's ripe time for the big reveal, yet the episode dances around it. Sol's failure to recognize May isn't his former Padawan borders on the absurd, especially given his past oversight with Camir's true identity. Meanwhile, Basil, whose keen senses somehow eclipse Saul's false abilities, inexplicably delays informing Saul of the imposter right beside him. To add to the melodrama, every time Saul is on the brink of a revelation,
there is a much larger threat than we anticipated.
The communication conveniently fails or something else gets in the way. Saul's mysterious comments to May.
I've had 16 years to think about what I would say to you. So you're going to listen.
Hints at deeper deceptions, suggesting he's always known May was alive or that he was responsible for the destruction of the Coven. But nothing happens. It's just all set up with no narrative payoff. His pair of black gloves might be covering more than just cold hands, perhaps evidence of a dark deed from the past, hinting that he might soon be caught red-handed. Despite his serene monk-like demeanor, glimpses of his deeper strategic thinking and latent aggression make him a more rounded character.
We have a lot to do, but first, you and I are going to talk.
The scenes subvert the episode's title, Teach Corrupt. While we might initially cast Saul as the teacher and the stranger as the corrupter, the roles are not so clear-cut. Osha, under Camir's guidance, explores new freedoms, albeit manipulatively introduced, while May finds herself literally restrained under Saul's watch. Meanwhile, a tertiary storyline involving Master Venestra barely simmers on the back burner. Through her, we learn of an impending Senate review of the Jedi Order, and not to the political climate, but otherwise a narrative dead end. Venestra's role seems as detached to the core story as a loose cable in a starship, serving more as a nod to the High Republic fans than as a crucial plot element. Watching Venestra and her team attempt to piece together last week's chaos feels redundant and adds little to the overall narrative.
What happened here? What do you see? An explosion, then a battle. One versus many. His power extraordinary.
Moreover, Venestra's introduction of a lightsaber whip, a ridiculously impractical weapon that looks like it has the potential to do more damage to the user, could be the source of the whip-like scars on Camir's back. Osha finds a potential allure in Camir's talk of harnessing personal pain as power, something that was frowned upon by the Jedi. Where the Jedi saw weakness, the stranger sees untapped strength, presenting a liberating alternative to Osha, who's had a fraught history with the Jedi, from reluctant acceptance to imprisonment. Both the stranger and Osha are outcasts in their own rights, sharing a bond over their mutual rejection by the Jedi. One moment he's a ruthless killer, and the next he's the personable guide on the dark path.
Why do you love people who can only go so far? Who can't go as deep as you can?
This duality leaves Osha in a quandary, torn between the impulse to destroy him or to explore the power of two he proposes, possibly even on a nearby bed. Camir also provides yet another curveball about his past. He implies that his Jedi days are a distant memory.
A long time ago.
I've never heard of you.
It was a really long time ago.
Yet he looks no older than 30. This age-defying aspect might hint at the influence of the dark side. Could it be that Venestra, herself a relic of a bygone era, had a hand in expelling Camir from the Jedi Order? With Venestra being a Marillion, a species known for their longevity, born in 288 BBY, she fits the profile of someone who could have trained Camir decades earlier. Who knows, and importantly, who cares at this point? The episode also delved into the lore of cortosis, revealing its unique properties that contribute to the helmet's power. There's a moment at the very end where Osha tries on the Sith helmet, symbolically flirting with the dark side, which begs the question, will she drift towards darkness just as May potentially veers towards the light? But she's such a wooden plank of a character that I don't really care. Honestly, despite the writers wanting it to be the core of the story, the twin narrative is the weakest link in the loose chain of plots, struggling to anchor the central storyline, and for such a late point in the season, the narrative progression just feels underwhelming.
Try it on.
I don't trust you.
Nor should you, but you should learn to trust yourself.
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
No, it's not. It's
Gets
gross.
the people going.
The pacing too feels off, with episodes ending so abruptly they seem more unfinished than cliffhanging, leaving viewers like diners whisked away from their meals before the last bite. As we look to the next episode, directed by Koganada, who previously helmed episode 3, it seems we might revisit Brendok in another flashback. Saul's resolve to come clean to the High Council suggests that a reckoning is near. He declares,
"It's time to make things right."
And it goes without saying that something is very off inside the Jedi Order. This episode's titling and its dialogue nudge us to question Jedi ideologies and ponder whether Master Venestra might be marching to the beat of her own drum. The show has continually hinted at Master Venestra's secretive actions and the moral decay of the Jedi, but hasn't shown anything to justify this framing. Her discomfort with Osha's return, her dissatisfaction with Sol's mission, and her political maneuverings to keep both the Jedi Council and the Senate out all point to a larger strategy at play. Venestra's not just managing a crisis, she's making an entirely new one to shield the Jedi from scrutiny over May's actions and possibly much darker secrets. Ultimately, the episode struggled with its execution, hampered by choppy writing, stilted dialogue, plot contrivances, and sluggish pacing. Ideally, the finale would deliver a polished narrative that reflects the complexity and depth of the issues at hand, rather than leaving us feeling like we're stuck in a sarlacc pit, slowly digesting missed opportunities. However, the show has more often missed than hit the mark, causing my anticipation to oscillate from waning to virtually non-existent. I find myself bracing for disappointment, not just for the mediocre to poor ending around the corner, but for one that destroys what I loved about the Jedi. This isn't the Star Wars you're looking for.
People give me about Jar Jar Binks and say, well, this is stupid. Well, you happy I'm gone now? You don't have Daddy to kick around anymore because this is what you get. I'm so relieved. This makes Attack of the Clones look like Citizen Kane.